talk about something really, really exciting. Okay, we've already talked a little bit about the sequencer. And so now we're going to talk about what makes the sequencer really, really cool. What I didn't mention in the last video is that this isn't a monophonic step sequencer. It is actually a polyphonic step sequencer. So you can record multiple notes per step, which is pretty cool. I'm going to have this in P1, so we're going to be just recording 3-note chords per step. And as per usual, when we start out doing something with a sequencer, we should probably clear all of the notes and the parameter modifying data, henceforth described as PM data. And to do that, you just press record, press hold and clear at the same time. Clear all steps, and now we're cool. Now there's no sequencing and no PM data in the grid section, so we're ready to begin. So let's go and start our sequence. Let's start the tempo. I'm going to put that at 60. I'm going to skip swing yet again. Go to sequence length. I don't think we need to do 64. I'm just going to do 16. Because, yeah, it'll be easier that way. Sequence mode, let's make sure we're just going forward. Okay, so we're set. What sound do we have going? It is a, we've got sawtooths in the analog oscillators, and we've got square waves in the digital oscillators, just to sort of differentiate between the two of them. So we're just playing some normal chords. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to record a sequence, a polyphonic sequence. And so let's do that. I don't have one prepared, so I'm just going to improvise. Are you ready? Okay. Press record. How's that? How's that for some serious, hardcore, real-time composition? Out of control. Okay. So now we have this sequence. Okay, that's awesome. What else can we say? Okay, let's dive into grid mode. Now, here's the thing with grid. The whole point of grid is to manipulate settings per step for a sequence. So if we go to grid and we press record, we can choose what step we want to affect, and we can affect it. So it looks like I did not completely delete the PM data somehow. So I'm going to try that again. It gives me an opportunity to show you how to do it step by step in the grid section. If you want to delete, hold clear, press the note, and you can do that with all of them. All right, so let's go out of grid for a second, come back to grid. Okay, now if we play, looks like I have somehow deleted our first step. That's not cool. So let's go back to the standard mode, and then we'll record. I think I remember the chord I played, so I'll press record. We're on that first step. I can just do this, and hopefully it'll work. All right, so back to grid. Okay, so now our trick is, what do we want to have happen in these 16 steps to our recording? So let me tell you, basically each step we have the ability to alter all of the various parameters. So for each step, theoretically, you could have an entirely different synthesizer sound, voiced entirely differently, with different effects, different envelope, different LFOs. You could invent an entire preset per step here, and it would just go through them. I'm sure you don't want to sit and watch me do exactly that, but I will do a few tricks that will give you a sense of what we're looking at. So on this first step, let's just leave that the same. That's what we're used to. Let's move on to the next step. I'm going to press a chord, get us to the next step. On this step, I'm going to move the analog oscillators to square waves. I'm going to move the digital oscillators to triangle waves. And I'm going to voice up all of the digital oscillators. Okay. Let's head to this next step. On this one, I'm going to put all of the analog oscillators on triangle, and I'm going to put all the digital oscillators on sine wave, and then I'm going to voice them way up. Okay, and on this next step, let's see, what should we do here? Let's mix it up. Let's have first oscillator 1 be a saw, oscillator 2 be a square, oscillator 3 be a triangle, and we'll do the same thing to their octave, so they're all in a different octave. And then we'll go to digital, and we'll do the same thing. We'll put number 1 on saw, number 2 on square, number 3 on triangle, and then voice them in the same goofy way. Okay, so we've done that. Now we're on to the next chord. What are we going to do on this chord? Let's put everything on sine wave. That's a pretty interesting thing. Now you might be saying to yourself, hey, Mark, why don't you do something with the filter? And I'm going to save the filter manipulation for another thing I want to show you. So let's go to this one, and we'll just make them all triangles. So that's fun. And then this one, we'll make them all square waves. And then this one, we'll make them all sawtooths. So, I'm just sticking to these waveforms because they're really quick, immediate fixes that we can go for. But hey, let's move beyond that and do something more interesting. We can do something like, so far, I think all of the envelope settings are just sustain. So we could do something like get sustain release down and just get a really small little plucky sound with the decay on that step. And then the next one, we could do something different, like have a little bit of an attack, a big decay, a lot of sustain, a lot of release. Right here, we could turn on an LFO, select a target that is, let's just do overall pitch, and we'll get it at a certain rate and a good amount. So that's going to be weird. And on this one, let's just turn up the filter modulation. I guess that's what it's set to. All right. On this one, let's go to the digital oscillators, put them all on wavetable, and then bring all of the other oscillators down. We could do that. That's a thing we could do. We'll go to the next step. We'll again put all of these oscillators on wavetable. We'll change the wavetable setting. We'll still have all the analog oscillators down. On this step, we'll do that one thing again so we can have a totally different wavetable. And not hear the analog oscillators. And then on our last step, I say we just have noise. We'll make it the brown noise there. And we're done. Are you ready for our masterpiece? Let's see what happened. switched it to ping pong mode, so we're hearing it backwards and forwards now. Guess we could. So you can tell how complex this can get. You basically have a preset per button. For each step of your sequence, you have an entirely different preset. And so you could make really complex sequences and really interesting sequences. And one thing I didn't mention, which is a thing that you probably thought about and asked about, in your mind, I'm about to address right now, which is the filter thing. So like I'm going to turn up our resonance a little bit here. And that's just basically changing our overall patch. So now it's a high resonance sort of patch. I'm just going to get the cutoff right about here. Then we can also do this. Okay, we've got the thing playing. Actually, I'm going to put it back in forward mode because I don't know what will happen if I have it in random mode when I do what I'm about to do. Actually, I do know what it'll do, and it would be really cool. But let me explain that to you after I show you what it'll do in forward. Okay, so we're just going to do play. And so if we want to, we could just press record and start changing parameters. And as it's on a step, it will remember what changes took place. So you can also make those sorts of changes in real time as well. It'll record what your changes are as the sequence is playing. So if you had like a 64-step sequence here, you could do much longer changes over a greater period of time. So I don't think I ever heard the LFO trick we did, but anyway, it's in there somewhere. So that is what Grid essentially does, is it allows you to create patch changes for your sequences so that they're not just a static repetition of notes. They actually have different sounds per step. And you can use that to subtly shape your sequence. Like if you played on every single note and you want to take some of those notes out, you could delete them, or you could just program in all of the oscillators to be quiet for that one step and it would go away. The possibilities are just so insanely infinite. I'm not even sure. There's no limit to the things you could do. I'm trying to think of like, you could do like phonemes, like you could have multiple steps and then figure out consonant and vowel waveforms and create them so that actually over time it actually says things. That would be a lot of work, but you could do it. It's just an incredibly powerful functionality. There is the possibility, like if you have a certain setting that you want to keep coming back to that isn't just your normal patch setting, because the steps in the grid are default the patch setting of the overall patch. So if you have a separate patch that you want to keep coming back to and don't want to take the time to continually reprogram it, you can press record, then press the source pad and hold that source pad until it says copied on the OLED, and then continue to hold that pad and then press the pad you would like it to go to, and then it'll tell you that it confirmed. So we can actually try that right now. Okay, so record. I'm going to take this guy. It says copied. I'm going to put that here too. And it says copied. So if we play, now this one's going to be obnoxiously gross. It also copies the note data as well. So that's something to keep in mind. When you do it, you can tell that chord changed. But yeah, so that makes the Medusa sequencer even like really astoundingly powerful because you can do so many creative things. Theoretically, the sequencer could be playing the same note over and over again, and you could go in and change the pitches of the notes being played to make the sequencer play an entirely different melody. I mean, theoretically, you could have more than 64. You could have 64 times 6 steps simply by engaging different oscillators tuned to different pitches over time. Like you could really, you see what I'm saying? That probably is really super unclear, but you could program sequence notes in the sequencer, but then you could change them by changing the pitch of the oscillators and create new and complex and different other outcomes than were there programmed in the sequencer by reprogramming what the frequencies of the oscillators are. Anyway, my brain I've only had this thing for a few days. My brain can't even grasp the amazing diversity that is possible using PM data with the sequencer. It's really amazing. Anyway, so that is very, very basically the Polyend Dreadbox Medusa synthesizer. And I'm sure I will have more to add later, and I may add several other videos because there's so many interesting applications that you could employ, just showing how this is a performance device and different ways that you could play it and cool sounds you could come up with a synthesizer like this. And I have so far not entirely done it, not even come close to doing it justice, but at least I've given you a sense of what it does.